Oh, the number of people who wanted me to do this one. So happy Pride Month. Let's look at a very bisexual movie, Challengers. But first, hi, I'm Genevieve. I'm polyamorous for 12 years. I do long form videos and resources here, short form videos and resources here. Be sure to hit like, it helps me in the algorithm. Drop a comment if you want. But in this channel, I take a look at examples on screen, non-monogamy in film and TV. What do they do well? What is messy and they get wrong? In my opinion, let's get into it. This film follows three skilled tennis players, Art, Patrick, and Tashi. Art and Patrick are really close friends, and they both think Tashi's cute, so they both go ask her number together. And Patrick jokes saying that their friendship is an open relationship. They invite her over, all three get close. She starts dating only Patrick, but they fight when she tries to coach him. She's stressed, angry, and distracted after that fight. She steps the wrong way, snaps her knee, and just like that, her career is over. So Patrick and Tashi break up, and from that point on, Patrick and Art stop talking. She starts coaching Art, they get married, and she cheats with Patrick. After a decade, Art is ready to retire, he's done, and now it's this question of what is our relationship? Are they still a couple if he quits? But Tashi's like, no, you just need to get your fire back. Let's get you passionate again. Let's go to a lower level challengers tournament where you can get some wins and you can be reminded like why you love this game. Patrick, this whole time, has stayed passionate, just less successful. And he enters a challengers meet to earn a little bit of money. And as you probably guessed, through sheer coincidence, this challengers meet has Art and Patrick playing each other, with Tashi watching from the sidelines. Now, on the surface, this could look like just a love triangle, just two people competing romantically for the affection of one person. But something felt different about this than any other movie with love triangles, right? Why are polyamorous people relating so hard? Yes, technically. If we look at the text of Challengers, it looks like poly baiting. The three-way kiss that does not turn into three-way sex. The fact that Patrick says it's an open relationship, even though that term doesn't really apply. But I think when I started shifting from poly baiting to poly coded was when Tashi was speaking on the beach.
So you don't know what tennis is? It's a relationship. For about 15 seconds there, we were actually playing tennis. It's like we were in love.
And she's telling us, the viewer, that this is how we should look at it, at two people playing tennis as being in a relationship. And at that point in the story, it feels very cute and open and non-competitive yet.
He's asking for your number. And so am I.
You both want my number.
Very much so, yeah. Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is such a sweet little moment. To a lot of us, a relatable moment. Like, I've done that out in the open. No one is like putting each other down or trying to shove each other out of the way. It's just very straightforward. Art was instantly smitten. Patrick was already in this playful antagonistic connection with her from the start. They both have very different relationships with her, which are each also very different from the one they have with each other. The three all have their own chemistry. And she's being a little dom babe, leading the whole interaction, sitting down and saying, I'm waiting. The two guys are so into her. She sits back and watches them be so into each other. And then she stops it very suddenly. And it's a bit ambiguous as to why. She's also a character that's a bit stoic and hard to read a lot of the time. And I started wondering, does it have anything to do with the fact that she was no longer involved? Like, a lot of times, this is a common fantasy for people who've never done it, is like, oh, I would love three people, Very often, there are moments where two people are focused on each other and the third is, just an observer. And that can be very fun for some people. But I've also seen people really get rattled. Like, I didn't think there'd be a time where neither of you were looking at me, And I was a little curious, like, is that at play here at all? Of where now suddenly that Tashi is no longer included, does something switch where she wants to get control of the situation again? But it could also be that she's just playing games from the start and wants to keep them on their toes. Because once she jumps up and says, okay, I'm going home, they're like suddenly frazzled and surprised and they're trying to get her to stay, and they are now, all of their attention is on her again. And this moment is when it overtly, officially becomes a game. When she says, you two are literally going to compete for my phone number. These are the ground rules, okay? The match you two are playing tomorrow, I will give my phone number to whoever wins. You know, a lot of people are villainizing her throughout the film. She is being manipulative, and the guys are also agreeing. The guys are also on board, you know? So Patrick wins, goes out with her, and Art is like, you know, signal to me with your racket if you slept with her, which he did. And we see Art seem to be happy for him, and then his smile fades.
Isn't this hard for you to hear? Like, wouldn't you rather not? No, I'm very happy for you. I just don't want to feel left out.
Which is also an incredibly familiar feeling in non-monogamy. Like, I'm not trying to replace you. I'm not trying to stop you doing what you're doing. Like, I might even have parts of me that are really happy for you. And I really don't want to be left out. I'm scared that what we have might change or might be threatened. What does this mean for me and for us? Both of those feelings coexisting, that is what I saw on Art's face. The rest of the love story, the next decade between the three, is all about competition and not collaboration. So there could be an argument that that is where the polyamory coded part ends. It's officially a love triangle, right? And I would say that is what the characters are trying to do. I would say that is not what the film is trying to do. No two people, no dyad is ever centered above the other. We actually get an almost equal amount of scenes between each separate duo. And how this separates it from other love triangles is that usually films will have like a main relationship, a duo that you're rooting for, and then the third person is like a complication that this duo has to work through to find each other, right? But how this film balances all three duos basically says that there is no main relationship. As well, when two people are on screen, they're often talking about or thinking about the third. Like when Tashi and Patrick are hooking up and she's talking about how great Art is, and every time she does, it's like Patrick gets more heated into it.
Pretty smart.
Yeah.
He's good looking.
Yeah.
And he's really fucking good at tennis.
He's always been very good.
That feels like all three are in the room.
I just got the impression she's not thinking about this as a serious relationship.
Fucking snake. Honestly, I'm proud of you. I've been doing the same thing.
I'm not doing anything.
It's fine. It's exciting to see you this way. So what's been missing from your tennis?
What?
It's nice to see you lit up about something. Even if that something is my
Oh,
girlfriend.
that's what the two of you are calling each other now.
Oh. You know, this just makes it harder for me, right?
There's power play, there's sexual tension, there is all three of them in that conversation. And cutting back to the match, it is between these two men, but Tashi is an active observer. And Art and Patrick only start to bond again after Patrick, the way he did a decade earlier, signals with his racket and his serve that he slept with Tashi. And that is the moment that the two finally start getting some chemistry back with each other, that they finally start falling in love on the court. She is there with them, and she was the catalyst. Again, this is all messed up. It's all cheating and lying and backstabbing and everything, right? Like, I think this is a great film, but not a great example. I think it's polyamory coded, but don't do what they did. Their relationships are very much about winners and losers, about power and domination over each other, and not in the fun, everyone talked about it and is having a good time kind of way. It's more in the underhanded, non-consensual, someone's about to get hurt kind of way. There's obviously the time Art tries to convince Tashi to leave Patrick.
He's not in love with you.
I think you might be the worst friend in the world.
Maybe.
And Patrick, years later, tries to get her to leave Art.
I want you to be my coach. What?
Which not only betrays Art, but the whole fight leading up to her injury was about him saying, "You can't coach me." And Tashi obviously plays the guys against each other constantly.
Tell me it doesn't matter if I win tomorrow.
No.
I want you to lose tomorrow.
I'm aware of that.
I'm asking you to lose tomorrow.
I can't believe you do this to him.
I mean, fucking you would be one thing, but this is unforgivable.
There's not really a villain in this film, though. Like I said, the film balances all three relationships. It also equally applies blame, which I appreciate, because all three of them are lying and scheming and manipulative.
We can travel. You can do the foundation full time. Or you can keep being a tennis player. Which is what you are. What do you want?
They're always like talking about tennis, but not talking about tennis, which is why things never get dealt with head on, because they're not discussed head on.
I know what you're trying to do right now.
I'm not trying to do anything, Art. This is a challenger. I don't need to play mind games with you.
Right. Do you realize how embarrassing it is that you are here right now?
Not quite as embarrassing as you being here.
I'm just stopping by, man. This is where you live. I always tried to figure out what happened to you, but the more I've thought about it, the more I realize it's what didn't happen.
We're not talking about tennis.
What the fuck else do I have to talk to you about?
This is a very bisexual movie. Not just the literal text of the film, though definitely that too. Art and Patrick date women, and they are very close, very touchy with each other. I don't know if you noticed, but in the bedroom scene, Art and Patrick's beds were pushed together before Tasha even got there. Not one big bed. Those are two separate beds, just pushed together on purpose. Patrick's bisexuality is pretty out loud and proud. We even see him on the dating apps, swiping multiple genders. Art seems more reserved, though, a bit tense and at times uncomfortable.
I mean...
No. Patrick.
Yes.
Sorry.
No.
I think you need to tell me now.
I think it's a sweet story.
Uh-huh. All right.
Well, let's hear it.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I taught Art how to jerk off, so...
And so I love seeing multiple bisexual characters in a movie, right? Because it shows how everyone's relationship to their queerness is their own. We are never going to be a monolith. So clearly the story and the characters have overt bisexuality, but, and stay with me, I feel like the camera is bisexual too. In film theory, there's a specific way that a camera will have the quote unquote male gaze, when a camera is like lingering over people's physical shape, sexualizing body parts. And this film does that with every gender. But the camera also switches in and out of the female gaze. And by the way, this male and female gaze, I think they're pretty dated terms. I think it's pretty binary and kind of bioessentialist, but it's currently what they're called. The female gaze approach to sexuality on screen is all about vibes. It is not what you look like, it's about who you are. When Patrick and Art are eating lunch and we see Patrick pull Art's chair closer. A chair moving is not sexual, but in this moment with these two, it is hot. It is building sexual tension. Female gaze. I'd say even when the guys are swooning over Tashi for the first time, first it is about how she looks and she leans forward and her tennis skirt is kind of up. But then she starts playing and she is strong and powerful and does a primal scream. And now what's hot is her power. So I'm really into when a camera does not have a binary gaze, when there's fluidity to it, especially when they are exploring queer themes, By the way, this director also made Call Me By Your Name. So do with that what you will. It feels like every creative choice was meant to seduce you. The way that through the course of their match, we increasingly get brought into Art and Patrick's relationship. At first, we see the camera off to the side. And then when Art serves, he gets a flashback to playing with Tashi. And now the camera is eye level. The ball is coming right at your face. And then the camera's point of view. We become Patrick and look down at his racket. And then the camera itself is the tennis ball. We are now flying back and forth between these two in a really disorienting way. So that buildup, that increasingly getting closer and closer to that moment of two people falling in love on court. I think that was such a cool, impactful way to show that and make us feel that. A creative choice that was a little bit more divisive with people was the score, which was by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Every time someone is getting lost in the moment, the music is getting more intense and more loud, and then the music snaps the minute they get snapped out of it.
And then I'll come in a second and we can order some room service and watch it together. She likes it here.
We could keep staying here.
So even though that was not an experience that everybody loved to be taken along the ride for, I do understand, at least it made me feel like I was getting seduced into a moment and then getting a splash of cold water every time it happened, you know? And so it was very effective, if that's what they were trying to do, was to illustrate how alluring and, you know, hypnotic this kind of pull into a tennis relationship is, this kind of pull into each other is. They also compare being in love to being close to God, using choir music during moments of deep connection.
Here we bring you water from the well so clear.
Love or hate their choices, they will make you feel something. It's also a very visceral film. It's a very textured film. They do a lot of close-ups and slow motion on skin and sweat. Extreme close-ups of facial expression also compounds how hot it is, you know, because if you're doing erotica while also making someone very aware of the texture of the fabric or the texture of someone's skin, like now I'm in the moment, now I can feel their sweat. You feel the movie, you know, and that is very effective as well in terms of like being viscerally impacted. And it's also so good at building tension, and it finally has a big erupting payoff where at the end of this match, Art and Patrick collide into each other's arms, and we see Tashi do that primal scream. They are giving us hope. Maybe they can let each other in and all be together. At least that's my very optimistic, very polyamorous interpretation of the ending. Director Luca Guadagnino makes a point to say that the movie is indeed about the trio as its own relationship, saying the entire arc is about the possibility of going back to that hotel room to find again that beautiful moment, to feel at ease with one another the way they were there. Basically, that the film is about aching and yearning for all three to find each other again. I will also add that the movie that was most divisive when I did a polyamory coded read of it was Past Lives. The writer of that film is married to the screenwriter of Challengers. And look, I'm not speculating about these real people's lives. I don't know them. I'm just saying it was validating to learn that the only two polyamory coded movies I've done, off screen, they have some connective tissue. Like I'm not totally imagining things. It's always tough when people ask, you know, is this polyamorous movie good? Do you recommend it? And I'm like, good in what sense? You know, recommend it how? Good in the sense of like aesthetically, it's very interesting. It's incredibly unique. They take a lot of risks and it's very thoughtfully executed. So yes. And finally, some IP that is not just a remake or a reboot, but is this a good polyamorous movie? Do I recommend this polyamorous example? Hell no. Hell no. These are very complicated, very fucked up people, you know? All three of them struggle so fundamentally with saying what they really want or need. They're always instead scheming, trying to change the situation to meet their needs, no matter who it screws over, no matter if it breaks the heart of someone that they claim to care about. So I do want to recommend Challengers, but I don't recommend the characters. Anyway, everyone seems to have an incredibly polarizing take on this film. So I'm curious what yours is. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you totally disagree? You know, tell me about it in the comments. Otherwise, thanks so much for being here, and I will see you next time.